the 70s guys. I grew up with them. I was 23 years old. They took me under my. I didn't know the NBA. I thought I was a college basketball fan and a college basketball aficionado, if you will, and I was thrust into the NBA at age 23, never having covered a game, never having met anybody that year. I was Tom Heinsohn's rookie year as coach, etc. And if I weren't for John Havlicek, Don Nelson, Satch Sanders, etc., I wouldn't have. I mean, they transitioned me. They taught me the nuances of the game, and so did Tommy Heinsohn. Okay, and then they go through that year. The first year, they're 34-48. They don't have Russell. Hank Finkel, is just doing his best in the middle. And then the fateful draft of 1970, and Red Auerbach drafts Dave Cowens. Immediately, the team is going to be competitive. And they were. In the second year now, with the first year with Cowens, they had a 10-game winning streak in December and went on. They won 44 games. They did not make the playoffs, but they were back as a force. Okay. And I grew up with those guys. I went out drinking with those guys. It was a different world. I went to lunch after practice. We went out drinking, closed up bars all over America. You got to know their wives' names, their kids' names, etc. What car they drove, the whole thing. And you were part of the deal. You got to the airport and you waited at the lounge for them, at the gate for them. You got on the plane with them. I played cards with them, etc., etc., etc. So. And you form these relationships, Now the key was, and this is always true, it's eternal, it's the number one rule today. And I never phrased this, I never formulated this until about 3 or 4 years ago. And now I preach this to, youngins in the business, okay? You're a salesperson. And the commodity you're selling is you. You're selling yourself to the players, to the coaching staff, and to the administration. If it's college, it's the players, the coaching staff, and the athletic director, Okay. Well, inherently I was doing that. I was showing them I loved the game, and I knew something about the game. I wanted to learn about the game. And then in terms of all the stuff that you would see and hear, that you learn what's reportable and what's not reportable. And you know how to draw the distinctions, and that you earn their trust that way. It takes a while. That's why I'm sure it took a whole year at least, but I earned their trust, and I had a very fruitful 7 years with that group. And Cowens, of course, he's the most interesting personality and the most interesting person overall that I ever covered, because he's a Hall of Fame talent with an electrifying style and one of the most intellectually curious people I ever met, and uninhibited, completely uninhibited in his thoughts. And we hit it off, and to this day, I love talking to Dave Cowens, but covering him was a delight. And so it was so much fun watching him play against Kareem and against Bob Lanier and against Willis Reed and etc. The big guys are all bigger than him, but Dave held his own, of course, or even beat them. So I'm very proprietary to that group. And of course, my first book that I did with a player was John Havlicek. I'm very proud of that. And so that when they finally won in '74, that was very personal for me. It was my first championship coverage. But I had seen these guys grow. I saw this happen. I presided over the growth, journalistically speaking, of this team. It meant a lot to me, and I was very fulfilled. And so that team easily could have won 4 times. We all know in '73, if Havlicek doesn't get hurt, they're winning, period. They won 68 games, they would have won. '75, they messed up. I think Tommy Heinsohn did not coach well, frankly, in the playoffs, okay? And then '76, they came back and won. People should remember that group. Forgot to mention an extraordinarily important person, both for them and someone important in my life, Paul Silas. Nobody quite like Paul Silas. He occupied a niche with that team. I called him the conscience of the team. He was talking about a guy, and the phrase "man's man." That was Paul Silas, and what a group! If I could go back and relive it, every second of it, in a heartbeat, I'd do it.